Today is Monday, October 23rd, week 7 NFL recap. This is the Monday Morning Post. I'm the host, Ryan Sampson, joined by our NFL New York Post sports columnist, Ryan Dunleavy. Ryan, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you? Two Ryans together.
Two Ryans together, and I'm couldn't be happy to be doing this with you. But I wanted to
Hey,
start.
did you hear there was a Ryan Con? Did
I
you?
did not. I did
Yeah,
not.
Brooklyn on Sunday. There was like some gathering of the world's largest amount of Ryans.
No way.
Yeah. I couldn't go because I have two kids who aren't named Ryan. But
I'm
uh,
not important enough. I didn't hear about it. So there you
yeah,
go.
my mom sent it to me. She was like, "You should go to this. Maybe next year we'll plan to go together."
Yeah, it sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
But Ryan, I did want to ask you about some of these games yesterday, and starting off with Sunday Night Football, Eagles Dolphins. It was the game everyone was looking forward to, and not such a strong schedule of games, I would say, yesterday. But this game, it lived up to the hype a little bit in the first half, but then the second half, the Eagles cruise past. They win 31-17. I think the bigger takeaway here, besides the Eagles winning again and bouncing back after that loss to the Jets, the Dolphins. A lot of fans and media types were asking, are the Dolphins for real, right? Because we've seen this offense explode and it's been so lethal all year long. But their record this season going into this game last night against against the teams they've beaten was 8-25. So they haven't beaten great teams this year, their wins on their season. So when you look at it, are the Dolphins, can we considering they got dominated by the Bills earlier this year too, and now they just lost by a double-digit score to the Eagles? Are they not as good as we thought they were?
Yes, I think that's true. Yeah, I wouldn't call them frauds yet, but not. They're not the Super Bowl contender right now that like the Chiefs are or the Eagles are or the 49ers are. Those teams, they're there year after year after year. The Dolphins this is their emergence, right? This is their first year knocking on the door. Are the Dolphins not as good as we thought they were? Yes. Are they a playoff team? Yes. Book them. They're going to the playoffs. Whether they can win a playoff game, they might be in that Chargers category as a team that usually makes the playoffs and doesn't really do much. That might be where they are. Maybe they win a playoff game, but once you get down to the AFC's Final Four, I don't think that they've shown they can hang with those teams yet. The one thing about them, Ryan, is, and coaches have said this to me all year, they're so unique to prepare for because you do things against certain teams that carry over the next week. You face the Lions, well, you face another tough team that likes to run the ball, so there's some carryover. When you're preparing for the Dolphins, it's so unique because like you don't have guys who run 4.3 40s on your practice squad to use in the scout team. So preparing for them is such a one-off that I do think if they get healthy, they didn't have 5 starters, I think, last night. If they get healthy and, they play some teams that, are good teams, like I'd like to see them play the Ravens, I'd like to see, I'd like to see them play the Cowboys and see what happens when those teams play that next tier, that second tier. Yeah, I think that at that point, they could that explosive offense makes them so unique that they'll be a difficult matchup, just not for the teams that know how to win year after year after year after year.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up about preparing for that Eagles offense. There's so much speed across the board for them. I think what's interesting about them is that I think Mike McDaniel truly does want to run the ball as much as possible to relieve some of that pressure right off Tua and those to get those weapons some time to develop downfield. It just it for me, I think there is a way to beat them if you stop that run game. Because if you stop that run game, you're forcing it all on Tua. And you saw it last night. Interception, just the route concept didn't make sense to me. You have both Raheem Mostert and I believe it was either Waddle or Hill, and they're both running the same route basically into the end zone. And Tua throws his usual lofty deep pass. It gives too much airtime, and that makes Darius Slay an easy interception there. I just feel like there is a way and formula. I understand what you're saying. It's tough to prepare, but if you could stop that run game, it might be a little bit easier on you to say, now we just got to defend this pass. Let our corners go back and run with these cheetahs that they have on their offense.
Or just, slip into a zone and keep everything in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously this goes hand in hand with it, but because they're the teams they've played are the teams they've beaten are 8-25 this season. They're often playing with huge leads. Like they were up on the Giants the whole game by
Yeah.
14, 20 points. Like they're usually playing with huge leads, and that is conducive to like run the ball, etc. Like you were saying, if you can jump out on them like the Bills did a couple weeks ago and force them, take away the running game, force them into a passing game where you can tee off on their tackles. And I don't think the Dolphins defense is that good.
No.
So you can, if you can play with a lead against them, I think you have a much better chance than you do, even more odds than you when you're playing with a lead against most teams.
Yep. I totally agree. Next up for the Dolphins, they'll have the Patriots next week. So I'm sure they'll have a nice bounce back win over there for them since they beat up on the bad teams. The next game I want to talk about, Ryan, is the Ravens versus Lions. This was the game everyone was looking forward to on that 1 o'clock slate, right? Because there wasn't much else besides you saw the Giants Commanders game, obviously, but the Ravens Lions, everyone was on the Lions. Everyone's called them the sexy Lions. Everyone, that's their team of the NFC. They love rooting for them. Dan Campbell's a good guy to root for. They got absolutely destroyed and manhandled by the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. I watched this game drive after drive after drive. It was a typical formula. The Ravens held onto the ball, long drives, and the Lions 3-and-out, 3-and-out. Couldn't handle it. And for me, what was most impressive, and I wanted to ask you, the Lions offense and the Lions defense, sorry, couldn't handle the Ravens offense. So what are you concerned about the Detroit Lions and maybe they're not? And again, this is a similar question to the Dolphins. Are they just not as good as we thought they were?
I mean, they're the best team in the NFC North, so you can pretty much pencil them in for the 3 or 4 seed in the NFC playoffs. Are they going to beat the Cowboys in a 4-5 game? I don't know. I mean, they're not going to get tested much in their division. They're definitely the best team in their division, but they've stepped up in class. And what I thought was really interesting about that matchup, Ryan, is that was like the new kid on the block in terms of toughness. Like the Dan Campbell, kneecap biter, offensive and defensive lines. We want to out tough you, right? We want to out tough you. That's all. That's everything the Lions are. Whereas the Dolphins are all speed and sexy glamour. Yep. The Dolphins are old school smash mouth. We want to out tough you. Well, they ran into like the OG of toughness since like 1996. Ray Lewis, Aunt Saragusa, Ed Reed. Guys will just smack you in the face, take the personal foul, and move on. Like, I know there's people listening to this who go back to the 70s and the Steelers and, the Bears. 90s on, it's the Ravens who are the smash mouth defense, toughness franchise. And that the new kid ran into the OG and the OG said, this is how you out tough a team.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, honestly. And the Ravens offense took off a little bit here too with Lamar Jackson, 357 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He had almost no pressure on him, almost a perfect passer rating. Are you starting to see that maybe this offense can click? It's the Todd Monken, new offensive coordinator. They're starting to develop these weapons, and Zay Flowers looks like a legit threat. Mark Andrews, nice, cool 2 touchdowns on National Tight End Day yesterday. Is this Ravens offense starting to click?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think anytime you have a new coordinator come in, it takes probably 4 to 8 games probably just to establish your rhythm, especially with how few guys play in the preseason nowadays. So, yeah, I think there's a chance that we're seeing an offense, find its stride. I mean, Lamar Jackson was an MVP. Beckham really hasn't done anything for the Ravens yet, but Andrews is there. You got the second option. Flowers is a rookie. So, like, I think they're a team that's just going to get better as the season goes along. And they're really, I know the division's tight, but when you look at it, they've played more road games than home games. They've played their 3 division road games. So they're really in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it's a great point. And it's a great division that we're going to talk more about the AFC North in a little bit here, but I want the Ravens look legit. Switching tunes here, staying in the AFC, another game. Patriots, Bills. Bill Belichick gets his 300th career win in a huge upset win over the Buffalo Bills in New England. The Bills were double-digit point favorites for all gambling experts out there. And for the most part of this game, the Patriots got after them quick, and they held on to that lead for most of the game. Obviously, at the end, Mac Jones, pretty impressive drive at the end to score the game-winning touchdown to Mike Gesicki. What are you taking away from this? Because I do have a question about the Buffalo Bills offense. What are your biggest takeaways from this Bills-Patriots game?
It'd be nice if the Bills got off to a better start one of these games. They just keep doing this, right? Like they did it against the Giants and they survived. They had no points through the first 3 quarters and they survived barely by 1 yard. They did it against the Jaguars in London. I think they had 6 points going into the fourth quarter, and then they had to make a furious comeback. Still lost. The same kind of thing here, right? All of a sudden, they had 6 points, and then Diggs had that crazy touchdown catch. And all of a sudden, you can't stop them in the fourth quarter. Well, where is that for the first 3 quarters? They can't keep getting off to these slow starts. They're way too talented to be sitting here at 4-3. People were worried about them coming into the season that like had their window passed, and they jumped out. I think they were 4-1 after the crazy loss to the Jets on opening night, and you're like, oh no, they're still the same. No, I mean Josh Allen doesn't look the same. He's made some really baffling decisions, and though I mean as a whole, I just don't think that they are gelling like a team that has had its nucleus together for this many years should be.
Right. And there's the question of the offense here. I know we've asked this before and we talked about it. How much does Josh Allen miss a guy like Brian Daboll running that offense a little bit? But the thing, again, we always harp on is this offense is how it's being run. They had over 65 plays, 41 pass attempts. Josh Allen ran 7 attempts as well. So you're talking over 75% of the plays are running through Josh Allen. And I understand he's superhuman. That's how he plays. Put the team on his back. He's Superman. That's what he tries to be. But there's got to be another element to this game besides him to Diggs. And I think James Cook is pretty talented. You got to get him the ball a little bit more. But is this offense even sustainable the way they're running it right now? I know you're saying get off to a better start, but how do they change this a little bit here?
I mean, that's kind of how it's always been, right? It's never like Devin Singletary when he was there was a workhorse for the Bills. This is kind of always what they are, where it all runs through Josh Allen. Even the runs in the red zone are Josh Allen, and then at the end of the year he's beat up, and it's like, we're gonna run Josh Allen last next year, and then the games start, and you just run Josh Allen again. So, how does it change? I mean, how does it change? They make a trade at the deadline for another playmaker, maybe a running back. That's probably what they need to do. They probably need to balance out their offense, but it seems like they're never really willing to do that. So, no, I think there's certainly wonder if they miss Zach Moss, that trade they made Moss for Nyheim Hines. Obviously, Nyheim Hines had that unfortunate jet ski accident.
Yeah.
But Zach Moss, I think, had 17 carries yesterday for the Colts, even with Jonathan Taylor. You can imagine that the Bills probably would like a mulligan there.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Sticking with the AFC, but as a little interconference matchup here, you got the Steelers-Rams, great helmet matchup game in LA. Steelers hold on to a 24-17 win after a really bad spot there at the end of the game that probably wasn't a first down, even though the officials gave it to him. Officiating across the board was bad again yesterday. Let's just put it that point. But Steelers, another win, and they just keep grinding away wins. 4-2 on the season. Like, are they legit in the AFC North, or should we backpedal a little bit? Maybe the Rams weren't as good as we thought they were again too. But what did you take away from these games?
The Steelers defense is the Steelers defense, and Mike Tomlin is Mike Tomlin. My buddies in survivor pools, the kind of pools where you pick one team to win per week, who were like, I think I'm going to pick the Rams. And I'm like, what are you, crazy? Like, you don't pick against Mike Tomlin. You don't pick against the Steelers. You don't pick against teams that know how to win. You pick against, and I know they won yesterday. You pick against the Bears. You pick against the Colts. You pick against coaches that haven't proven anything and quarterbacks that aren't very good. Like, so anyway, my point being, you don't pick, the Steelers are exactly what we thought they were. They're like an 8-9 win team with an all-world defense. A defense that actually is probably their best offense. I mean, how many times is TJ Watt going to put them in the end zone or inside the red zone by forcing a takeaway? The Steelers are exactly what they thought. They had 3 rushing touchdowns in the second half. They barely put the ball in the air. No, I mean, they benefited from a good spot, but you know what? The Rams, if they had saved the timeout, if the genius Sean McVay had a timeout there, then he could have challenged it. But because the Rams were playing from behind, they had to use their timeouts, and that's the downfall of it. I'm not one of those people who now wants to scream because of that bad spot that like all plays should be reviewable or under 3 minutes now should be reviewable. No, like, you had a chance. There's rules. You know what the rules are. You left yourself with no timeouts and you got hosed by a bad call. That's That's what happens in this league. Yeah, I don't think the Rams are as good as people thought they were. When they beat the Seahawks week 1 or whatnot. But no, I think this game is about the Steelers being exactly who we thought they are, Ryan. A good playoff Super Bowl caliber defense with a not so good offense that'll balance out to like a wild card team that probably loses maybe to those Dolphins in the first round.
Sound like the New York Jets right now. Steelers next up play the Jaguars. Good game next Sunday. That'll be a fun one to look forward to. Last game I want to talk to you about, Chargers Chiefs. Chargers can't get out of their way. 2-4. Justin Herbert, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, but the Chiefs offense humming. Patrick Mahomes, 424 yards, 4 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, 179 yards receiving and a touchdown. Is this more about the Chargers and they just cannot they can't win? I don't know what to say. Like, they can't get out of their own way.
If you and I were doing this podcast in 2006, we invented podcasts in 2006, and we're sitting here and we're like, oh, you know what? This podcast thing we're doing is really going to catch on. We'd be saying, wow, the Chargers are really talented, and Phillip Rivers is a really good young quarterback, and Marty Schottenheimer and LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gates and everybody else on that
Vincent Jackson back in the day.
Vincent Jackson, who was the great linebacker they had. He was actually from Jersey.
Junior Seau. I know they had him for a little bit too.
Later than that. Like
you talking about Sean Merriman?
Yeah, Sean Merriman. Yes. We'd be like, wow, this team is loaded. Why don't they ever win? And it's like 20 years later, and we're still having the same conversation about the Chargers. They don't even play in the same city anymore, and it's the same stuff. Like, it's the same thing with the Chargers. They're so talented. They have top 5 players at their position everywhere, and they can't win. Now look, Mahomes is 29-3 against the AFC West in his career, which is remarkable.
Yeah.
It was actually, I thought, very interesting to see the Chiefs finally look like the Chiefs, right? Like, the weapons are obviously not as good as they were when he had Tyreek Hill or even Juju Smith-Schuster last year. He's throwing a Rashee Rice and Kadarius Toney and McCole Hardman back. And it's Kelce and, well, you saw some other guys step up and make plays. They scored 31. I think they only beat the Jaguars like 17-9. They beat the Broncos like 16-7. They hadn't really looked like we're going to drop 30 on you Chiefs at any point. And then yesterday they did. And I thought that was an encouraging sign. And it wasn't just Mahomes and Kelce. It was a little expanded. But yeah, again, it's the Chargers are, you look at the AFC and you say they're definitely one of the 7 best teams, and then they're sitting here at 2-4, and they play the Bears next week, and it's an absolute must-win game for the Chargers. Otherwise, probably got changes coming in the season there.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from this game was the Chiefs defense again just continues to dominate. Now, I wouldn't say dominate, but they hold their opponents to a respectable 20 points or less.
17 against Justin Herbert and the Chargers is pretty good.
Right, but not even just Justin Herbert. They've held all of their opponents this year. They have not allowed more than 20 points this season. That's really impressive for a Chiefs defense. When everyone was focused on the offense and how are they going to respond and how are they going to react? Again, this is the second year post Tyreek Hill, and all they do is just keep winning. They won a Super Bowl and they just keep winning football games, but their defense is starting to really click. And you saw that Justin Herbert was getting frustrated. My one thing with the Chargers towards the end of that game, there was still 2.5 minutes left in the game. You're down by 14 points. He still kept taking deep shots. And Tony Romo made a great point. It's like, I don't understand why Justin Herbert's trying to make that big play. Take what the defense is giving you, whatever's underneath. Give your chunks so that way you can score a touchdown. Regardless of how much time, don't worry about how much time is left. Worry about getting the touchdown first and then getting the onside kick. So that way you have other, just focus on that. And I think that there's maybe a Kellen Moore not speaking, not registering them like, hey, man, take what's in front of you instead of doing that deep shot and doing the magical with your cannon arm,
The Chargers play like teams, like when you were a teenager and you played Madden. That's what it's like, I just want to throw the ball deep. I don't want long drives. And then it's like, oh, it's 4th and 1 on my own 9-yard line. I'm not punting. Punting is boring in a video game. I'm going for it. Like, they play like a teenager playing Madden, and it's fun to watch, but it's not very conducive to winning.
No, it's not. Ryan, that's the Monday Morning Post. Thank you so much for recapping all the NFL action with us, man.
Thanks for having me.